if you're out there and you're looking at what the political message is coming through the cultural success stories out there, whether it's Terminal List, whether it's Yellowstone, whether it is certainly as you break it down, how much demand there has been for Top Gun Maverick, the most successful movie of all time from Tom Cruise's history. It's because people want pro-America, anti-woke programming, and there isn't enough of it.
A bit of general advice, and it is whenever you see that there is a show with a 90+% audience score and sub 50 on the critics, it's a show you want to see. Because it means that everyone loves it, but the critics hate it for some reason that has nothing to do with whether or not it's entertaining. And an example of this would be, Clay, have you seen The Terminal List yet?
I've heard it's great. No, I have not. Have you watched it?
I have watched every episode of The Terminal List. Jack Carr is a friend. I've known Jack for a few years
now. So explain this show, because I bet there's a lot of our audience that would like it. Explain this show for people like me who know it exists but have no concept of what it's about.
So the main character is played by Chris Pratt. He's a Navy SEAL named James Reese, who comes home after some special operations abroad. They're ambushed. I don't want to give much away, but there's a sinister plot that goes to the heart of the military-industrial complex. And basically, Chris Pratt is running around taking out bad guys. Lots of the tactical sequences are very well done. They bring in SEALs and people with similar expertise so that the actual gun battles and everything look really cool. I mean, they do a good job with that as entertainment. But they hate it because there's no wokeness, okay? There's no
so it's like it's in that way it's like Top Gun Maverick, which has been in theaters for 70 some odd days and is now the most successful Paramount movie of all time. It passed Titanic. That's how successful it is.
But I mean, even that movie, Clay, just to be fair, who's the bad guy? It's like a make-believe country in Eastern Europe or something. I mean, they're going for the global market. I get it. And apparently we don't make movies anymore. We're fighting other countries. But it wasn't woke.
But even in the original Top Gun, we didn't know who the bad guy was.
It was,
Everybody
everyone
thinks
assumed
it's
it was the
Russians.
Soviet Union, right, with the red star on the helmets. But, I'm just saying, it wasn't woke, but it wasn't like, it wasn't Team America World Police either, you know what I mean? It wasn't going too hard with the stars and stripes and the flag. But, okay, so Rotten Tomatoes, 94% audience score for this. It's a good show because one thing that Carrie and I have been struggling with is we're trying to find a show to watch that we can both enjoy together. And it's you watch stuff and you go, is everything just greenlit by the editorial team at MSNBC now? I mean, it's such trash. And 10 years ago, I feel like Netflix and HBO, there was this golden age where they were just making amazing programming. They're just making great series. Whether Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones and Narcos and, they're making all these great shows. Now, of course, the corporations that are behind all this are, we want to be progressive and social justice, and their shows suck, which is not surprising. But I will say, in fairness, we did find one show one movie, I should say, that I would recommend to everybody. I made Carrie watch this movie, The Outfit, a couple weeks ago. That wasn't really that was okay. It was like a B-. Wasn't woke, but just wasn't really that good. It was okay. But we watched this 13 Lives. Have you seen this? Are you familiar with this one? It's about the Thai youth boys.
Oh, yeah. I was
team.
Fascinated by that story. For everybody out there, this was the soccer team that got caught in the cave, and it flooded, and they weren't able to get out. How is the movie? Ron Howard made this one, right?
The movie is excellent. Highly, highly watchable. Really moves along. And the way they filmed this, that they originally, as I read a little bit about it because I was curious, they were actually trying to film a lot of it in the caves, but they weren't able to do that for reasons I don't even know now. So they moved it, I think, to Queensland in North Australia because obviously the actual cave is in Thailand. But it's amazing. I'll say this. There are few things in the world that I would find more terrifying than having to spend 6 hours underwater, 5.5, 6 hours underwater in a cave with fast-moving currents where at some points the cave is about shoulder width. So you've got
I couldn't even
darkness,
do it.
claustrophobia, the imminent prospect of death if you run out of oxygen or if you just, hit your head. And I mean, there's any number. It is really well done. I've been trying to tell folks about it. I remembered that story. The story is even more, in many ways, unbelievable and in the end inspiring than I remembered it from the news reports. It's crazy what they did to get. I mean, not crazy as in, they should have done any, but I mean, what they managed to pull off with those kids to get them. I don't want to give it all away. Is well,
I think everybody knows the kids all
it's a
got
true
out
story.
safely,
That's right, but
because it's a true story. But yeah, that story was captivating to follow and such an ennobling story, because every day you thought, oh, they're going to find the kids and they're not going to be alive. That was sort of the subtext of, this is a flooded cave. There's no way these kids are going to have survived for this long. And when they finally found them, then it's, oh my goodness, how in the world are we ever going to get them out of here? And they managed to do it. Speaking of the terminal list, there's an article up at Outkick, one of our good writers that we hired recently, David Hookstead. If you haven't already, we had an incredible month. But Outkick is kind of like manna from heaven if you're a sports fan or just a fan of pop culture and you think everything has gone woke. We've got a good article about it that went up today about the terminal list. 1.6 billion minutes of viewership on Netflix. Only show was the most recent show, Stranger Things season 4, is the only show that's beaten it in terms of popularity. So I'll just point this out. Culture is important in terms of what it's saying about what society is interested in right now. Yellowstone is by far the most popular show on television, other than sports. Doesn't get nominated for any Emmys. Wildly popular. Terminal List, evidently on Netflix, insanely popular. Top Gun, Maverick. What do all three of those movies and or shows have in common? Relatively limited woke material and or USA, 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 right? That is what they are overall selling, is United States excellence. And I think there's a huge demand for that.
You can tell very quickly in a lot of these shows. I mean, to this point, Clay, I could even I think there's a step even before that. What you're talking about is the manifestation of, or the way that the show actually tells the story, right? Is that it focuses on those things. I think it really also comes down to, when they're sitting in the writer's room, is the most important thing that they want to entertain and engage the audience? Or is it that they want to get a pat on the back for the agenda and the messaging behind this? Because I think you see a lot of shows where they start with a premise, which is, oh, let's make this about some left-wing woke agenda item, instead of, is this going to be a good story? Is this going to really bring people in? And, you brought up, what was the huge show that everyone's, oh my gosh, why is this such a success? Similar numbers, I think, to Yellowstone from years ago was The Walking Dead, right? It was, and The Walking Dead's a show where you take a graphic novel and you're just trying to make the most engaging entertainment possible. There's some broader lessons about parenting and, survival and other things in there, right? But overall, you're not getting a political lecture with The Walking Dead. You're just watching something that's meant to entertain you. Whenever they do that, there's success. When they're giving you a lecture about woke politics, people increasingly are saying, I just don't want to watch this.
Yep. And I'll give you I know we got people who listen in Hollywood. We got a big audience in LA. I'll continue to give this out. If you want to look like a genius and you want to have the number one streaming show or the number one television show, the number one show in America, turn Undaunted Courage by Stephen Ambrose, a phenomenal book about the Lewis and Clark expedition. Turn it into a mini-series, into I believe it would be a television event, the likes of which we have not seen in 20 years, right? In terms of a historical connection to America, pro-America. Now, you can say Game of Thrones was a television event. I love that show. Yeah, it's a fantastical show about, about dragons and medieval times, effectively. I'm talking about something that is rooted in American history, that is unabashedly patriotic, that tells a triumphal story of an overwhelming difficult in success.
I'm sorry, Clay. To get this made, though, Meriwether Lewis is going to have to be a gender-fluid pansexual, and William Clark is going to have to go around begging forgiveness from the native peoples for the future disrespect and betrayal of the colonists. I mean, otherwise we can't make that show.
Politics is downstream of culture, which is a great quote from Andrew Breitbart, and I do think it's true. If you're out there and you're looking at what the political message is coming through the cultural success stories out there, whether it's Terminal List, whether it's Yellowstone, whether it is certainly as you break it down, how much demand there has been for Top Gun Maverick, the most successful movie of all time from Tom Cruise's history, it's because people want pro-America, anti-woke programming, and there isn't enough of it.
Did you see? I know you're on vacation and you're having a great time with the fam, which was very important. You've come back rested in the fight, but did you happen to catch? Because I see you sneaking onto Twitter a little bit when you're on vacation. I always want to.
I still have to manage Outkick.
Yeah,
I didn't do TV, I didn't do radio, but I'm still managing our stories at Outkick.
So you probably saw that they had a $90 million write-off with a completed film of the
Batgirl.
I mean, now the thing is, I want to see that movie so badly because
they wrote down when they took over, $300 million CNN Plus. They said this is an unmitigated disaster. It's done. And now $90 million Batgirl. And you know how popular superhero movies are. You could basically get $100 million, I would think, just by advertising a lot to get people to come watch.
If you're a screenwriter or a producer making a superhero movie and you lose basically $100 million on it, you really should learn to code. Like, you should find another profession. You should
What would the equivalent to, it's a great point. You're making a superhero movie. The studios are all behind it. You almost cannot fail because there's such demand for superhero movies. And they watched your superhero movie and they said it was so bad, we're just going to take a $90 million write-off. They didn't even put it on the streaming service. It's one thing if they say, hey, this is not worthy of going to the movie theaters. They said it's so bad that they don't even want their brand associated with it. In other fields, I'm not even sure I can think of an equivalent.
I could just see this, though, like a Batgirl movie where Batgirl swoops in on the bank robbers, and they're like, hey, look at this broad wearing a costume. She's like, excuse me, sir. Broad? Are you assuming my pronouns? Like, you could actually do a great send-up of this thing. I mean, you could do a great...
There's a little bit of send-up of the overall woke culture that goes on in Deadpool, which has been very popular as a movie. But, Buck, think about all the people that are cast in this movie. They're saying, hey, this is going to be career-altering for you. You can't go wrong. You get into a superhero movie, you're the next Robert Downey Jr. I can completely do the pitch that they would have been getting in their Hollywood talent agencies. And then they get a call and they say, yeah, this movie is so bad that even though we spent $90 million, we're basically just going to burn it.
I guarantee we could write a better screenplay than whenever that was between the two of us in 48 hours. Honestly, that's why I want to see this.
I feel confident about that. I would like to see it too.